Hey up everyone, welcome back. Well, last week was a slightly shortish video, which you maybe appreciated, I don't know. And this week, back with the Indian, which you knew because of the title. And what we're doing actually is odds and ends with it, because the major work is done. I'm going to show you something about the clutch. Well, not about the clutch actually, about the nut that holds the sprocket on in a minute or two. But what we're going to do is put the rear light on, we wire it up, what have you, test that. Got to pop the tank off. I left it on because it just looks so nice, but it's got to come off because we've got to do that head steady and things like that. Actually, I'll let you into a secret here, because you may have noticed this and you'll think that's funny. He's only just doing this now later in the video. I'm doing this introduction sort of halfway through. In fact, the whole video might be a bit like that, because I'm just jumping around doing stuff. So enough said, let's get on. Another little job was the distributor. So I put new plug leads on and plug caps and everything. So let's see if we got our wiring right and if everything is good in the distributor. Let me just swing you up here. So, ignition off, nothing happens. Ignition on, 1, 2, 1, oh, the nuts come loose. Hang on. It'd be a lot easier if I could spin this with a kickstart. Of course, it would be a lot faster. Oh, now. No, it keeps coming loose. So anyway, you saw it spark, so I know I've got that done right. Now this is what I'm going to use to thread the rods in the lathe. I saw Age using this on RDG Engineering, and I sent him a comment and asked him, did he make it or did he buy it? So he wrote back to me and gave me the name of the company in the UK, which of course escapes me, but if you're interested, what I'll do is I'll put it in the little description thing, which I don't normally fill in at the beginning of the videos. But what it is it's a die holder, and you also get with it these ones which go in. So you've got 3 different size die holders. It's on a slide, and this one had, God, I think it's MT3. It's a Morse taper thread. So you stick that in the tailstock, and then you put your piece of rod in the chuck, and you can either turn it by hand, or if, like with the Colchester here, I can get right down to 40 RPM. You get it going, and as it threads on, it slides along this. And I've done one, and it's really good. I wanted to try it out first. The only thing I'm not overly taken with is, you can see, look, that it's just, I mean, the thread's knackered. There was no thread in it, which was a bit annoying. So, don't know what I'm going to do about that. The other thing was, it had a piece on the end of here which actually made it too long to fit into my Morse taper there, so I just ground the end of that off. But anyway, as I say, I just used it. It's really good, so I'm going to show you it working now. So I chamfered the end of the rod a little bit. Put some cutting oil on, and as you see, everything's set up, so hopefully you'll see it move along here. There it goes. Take it up to my mark, reverse the lathe, And there we go, nicely threaded. So isn't that a clever little thing? Alright, that's enough of that. And there's the finished article, screwed into that end, and nice thread in that end, no play in it. So as I say, that thing works really well. Thought I'd just show you the petal tap on this while I've got it apart. It's brass, solid brass. It's actually in 3 pieces. This piece here also screws off, and it's the plain push-pull type. It says push off, push on. So when it's off, the hole in the center is blocked off, and then when you push it on, the hole goes all the way through, so it works. Inside there's a sealing washer, which actually is in remarkably good condition. It's like a rubber sealing washer. This part here, as you can see, I hope, the actual center is cone shaped, so that screws in there, and seals it off. And this top part here is identical to that. But what this also has built into it is a reserve, and this is the bit that for the moment I can't get working. It seems to be jammed somehow. Inside the filter here, there's actually a tube, so that when it's in the ordinary position, which it is now, the petrol tank will drain down to this tube at the top and leave this much fuel in. Now when you switch this over, it opens a hole at the bottom, and that then allows the petrol tank to drain all the way down, so giving you an inch or so of reserve. So as I say, I'll keep working on this to get that free, and then we can fit it onto the tank. Here we are, so ready to put the head steady on. I've took the HT leads up there. They're going to go like the throttle cable through the fork of this thing. So what we need to do is we've got our first 7/16 BSF nut on, washer, and we put this thing on upside down, you remember. Another washer, and the nut, we're ready, that can slide so we can adjust it. Then we put this on here, so. Pull that down. Nice and tight. Now we'll put the bolt that goes in through there, so we know that's in its right place. The tank is going to go on this as well, so what I've had to do is measure the width of the thing for the tank, measure the width of this, and make sure everything will go together. And then all we do is tighten up the 2 nuts to clamp onto this piece that's bolted to the head, which is easier said than done. Not a lot of space to get a spanner in there. Put that one in. Making sure we're tightening these up equally on both sides. We don't want it loose on one side and then to be cranking on the other side, so we're pushing or pulling just once to make sure it's nice and tight. I guess we've moved it slightly because now the bolt is tight in that. I'll get a blooming spanner on this. There we go. You know, this is one of these, oh yeah, just pop this on here, tighten up a couple of nuts, That seems to have got it. Yep. Okay. So that's that on there. So let me go and get the tank, and we can pop the tank on, and then this top end is basically finished. Right, so now we'll put the tank on. Now you notice I've got a towel on this because these handlebar mountings are just too close for comfort. I've still got to sort of pull the seat back a little bit. And there we go. Right. Now then, how do we get this in here? Let's say we put the front one in first. Where is it? There it is. Forward a little bit. There we go. And that one, we're in business. All right. Come on now. That's that. Now, what did I do for this bolt? Alright, I've looked. Oh no, I haven't. There it is. I thought I'd lost the bolt for a moment there. That is going to go through. Come out there. Wahey! Wahey, as they say. Okay, I'm going to switch you off for a minute. Now, the next thing I've worked on is this rear light. I'm pretty sure it's the wrong one, as I say, close, but not exactly right. So what I've done is I've put on this rubber collar. It's actually a piece of rubber tubing that I've split and then it's glued on. And that's going to make, instead of this piece of plate here which sort of stuck up, when I make the cover, I'll make it so it's a nice fit on that rubber. That should be good. The other thing I found is I needed to space it off the bracket a little bit. That's because of the way they put the number plates on here in the US. It's going to have to go up a little bit into here. So I made up a couple of spacers, but what I've done with them is I've tapped them. I'm actually waiting for some longer bolts, the type I want. So what I've got is I've drilled through there, so they're fastened on, and they'll be permanent like that, and then that will go up, and the bolts will actually stick through a little bit, go onto the mounting bracket, and they'll be screwed on. So I've got my wires connected up, and as I say, I run completely separate earth wire. You'll notice, I don't know if you can tell, but one of these is red and one is orange, so that's not exactly brilliant, but it'll do. So let me just make sure you can see also. Let me zoom you out a little here. There we go. Now then, here, let me move that over there. You can see the brake light switch. It mounts on this plate which goes on to the rear footrest mount. It's the type that pulls out, so there'll be like almost a wire and a spring, so you can't over pull it. If they put a spring on here, you'll see it when it gets fitted. The idea is if you press the brake lever down too far so that it goes all the way at the end of its travel, you don't keep pulling it. Then the spring starts to stretch, so it saves this. So let's have a look-see. So brake light works. Let me walk around and we'll put the, there are we, side light, main, high, low. So rear light works perfectly. So when I've got the mounting bolts, I'll put these wires up through the mudguard, and that will be the backlight on. Then I'll have to make the cover that goes over from here to the mudguard, which will be red. Okay, let's do something else. So, real light. We've got to see this. I'll put some connectors on now, and I got the longer bolts, so I've put the spacers on. And what I've done here is I slipped up slightly because, as you may remember, there's a sort of plate on here, which is why we put this rubber on. And I thought that if I just put bolts through, put this on and tighten it up, it's going to squish that plate in and it's all going to get uneven. So what I intended to do was put some little spacing pieces under the plate to pack it out. But of course I glued the rubber on and then thought, damn, I didn't put the spacers on. So what I've done to obviate the problem of squishing this up is, as I said, the spacers I actually threaded, drilled and tapped. So what I've done is, as I screwed it down just on the back end here, I put a bit of Loctite on. So they're screwed up tightly, but they're not crushing it, and now the Loctite's set up so they're a permanent fixture, if you like. So I put the wires through. I actually had to make the hole in the mudguard a little bigger. It was very small. I hadn't noticed. You know, it's one of those things. I didn't notice it when I painted it, and then as soon as I come to put wires through, it wasn't big enough. So I drilled a slightly bigger hole. We've got a rubber grommet on. I put some. I have some red lacquer that I got when I was doing a BSA for the badge, and it's almost identical to this colour. So I just, where I drilled through, I gave a coat of that and let that dry, so it's not going to rust. So I've forgotten which one of these is the rear light and which one is the brake light. So let's connect them and test them. So we'd better put an earth on, hadn't we, as well. There we go. So that looks like the ordinary real light to me. Yep, well, how about that? Managed it first time. Okay. Now I'm not worried about these wires being a bit long, because don't forget we're going to put a cowl over here, so plus I can pull them through anyway into the mudguard. So this, in fact that's what I'll do. No, I can't. They're going to go in there. Famous last words. Yeah, there they go. So now this is going to go onto there, like so. And what we're going to do is put our earth onto this one. Washer. Right washer for there. That on. Nuts. I've been watching the weather you've been having in the UK. It was interesting actually. I watched one piece, well, read it actually because I use the BBC as my news web page, and they interviewed a woman who in Cumbria, and she had about, I don't know, 12 or 14 foot snow drifts, so they'd been snowed in and what have you, and she was saying that she'd lived there 20 years and never known it be that bad. And I thought to myself, well, I'm what, 67, and I can remember my relatives in North Yorkshire and the people in Cumbria and Westmoreland and what have you getting snowed in basically every year. They were always having to drop food for sheep and things like that. So how people's memories short. Alright, so there it is on. I'm going to tighten that one in a minute. You don't need to see me doing that. We'll put our lens cover on, which is just a press fit. And now we have a proper backlight. Beep, beep. Very good. Alright, so the next thing for this, of course, is to make the cowl. So let me tighten that up, and then we'll look at making the cowl for this. Now you'll see I've put a bit of masking tape on here. That's so that when I'm fitting and what have you, I don't gouge any chunks out of the paint. Now this is the template that Andreas very kindly made off the piece on his bike. But as you can see, you know, it sort of comes to here because it mounts here. What I've done with these, actually, there's two little holes on these folds. I've actually drilled them and tapped them to take a couple of little screws, because I don't think I can get inside to put a nut on. I don't know. But as I was saying, put that on. Because of this slightly different light, it needs to be bigger. So I made a new one. Fortunately, of course, this curve here from Andreas is the right one for the mudguard. So I've matched that up. The bottom's probably going to be slightly different. But that now goes on, and as you can see, it goes nicely onto the rubber that I've put there. So I'm going to put a little bit of rubber on this lip, this edge here, and I'm going to make it out of 16 gauge, which is actually a little, well, I don't know. Andreas said I think it was 1.5 millimeter on his, so 16 gauge is probably about right. But the thing is, it's only going to be bolted here, so you can't really make it, you know, if it was fastened at the back as well somehow, you could make it out of a lighter gauge, but it's basically got to maintain its structure and not wobble or bounce around with just those two bolts on little tangs at the bottom. So I want it to be pretty rigid. So I'll continue. I think this piece, basically all I did was I extended Andreas's out that extra bit. I think that's going to be reasonable. So let me cut a bit of metal. Actually, they might not be quite right. I make those a little bigger when I cut the metal. But let me cut a piece of metal and see how well that fits on there. Here I've got my piece cut out. So we've got to put our curve in this. Funnily enough, I was looking at one of those roller things the other day, wondering whether I should buy it. It was a built-in thing with a roller on the top and a shear and a brake at the bottom. But you know, you read it and it'll sort of do 22 gauge. Well, this is, well, I think it said 20. This is 16, and I use a lot of 16 gauge stuff. So I thought, yeah, I think that's one of those instances where buying cheaper wouldn't work. So we're going to go after the old tried and tested method of having a round form in there. It should, I mean, it's not too bad. We'll get it bent. I don't know if you can see, we're starting to get some little lines where this is, but those we can tap out with the old hammer. So let's get ourselves started in the middle. Now I'm working my way around. Actually, it's not as bad as I thought it might be. Keeping it straight. Don't start to do this as you're doing it, or you'll end up with it coming out in a cone rather than a tube. So there you are. See, we're starting to come round. So all I've got to do is, as I say, make sure it doesn't get cone shaped. That can happen as well if you're sort of pushing at this end, which is what's happened here a little bit. You've got to keep in mind that all of the pressure's getting here, so it's bending there. There's less and less pressure getting out here if your hands are right back here, which of course is where the roller comes in perfectly, because the roller puts an exact pressure over the whole thing. So you've just got to keep that in mind and make sure you do your bending equally front and back. And as I say, we can well, you can always turn it round and do it a bit like that to fetch it back round, but we'll work on this with a hammer as well. There, that's coming around nicely. So let me bend this up a bit more until we come to the sort of hammering shaping part, otherwise you're going to be standing here watching. Well, you aren't standing, are you? You don't stand up to watch this? No, of course you don't. Unless you're in the pub watching it. But I don't think I'm mainstream television yet. So let me get us further on and then I'll bring you back. So here we are, getting about there. I'm just gradually working it with this. Again, keeping everything straight. So I'll work on that a little bit more to make sure I get perfect roundness there. Then I've got to bend these two tangs over. Naturally, I'm thinking to myself, I maybe should have bent them first. But anyway, I've got to bend these over to be able to slide it on to check. I've been checking it on the thing, been putting it on this way, and that seems pretty good against the mudguard. And I've been turning it around here to put it on the rubber of the light, and it seems pretty close to there. Maybe it needs to come in a little bit more, but I can't come in too far. I can't get a complete sort of round because obviously these go under the actual bracket, so we'll get it as close as we can. Who knows, what I might do is just turn a slight edge over to get it right. So let me bend these and then I'll take you over there and we'll see how it looks on the bike. I'll show you this because as if I put them in the jaws, they would come round and catch here before I could get them bent. What I've done is sort of extended the jaws in a narrow width so I could put it in, and now you see I've got enough room to be able to bend that over and be able to get at it and so I can bend them right and then I can hammer them nice to the shape. So I'll do the other one, we'll go over to the bike. Now as you can see we're getting close, but this is one of these chicken and egg situations. When it's shaped up it won't go over that because the tangs on the bottom catch, and it won't, if I open it out a bit it'll just get it over there but not right. So what I'm going to have to do, I think, is unfasten these two so that the lamp will come forward a little bit. Then I can slip this in and check it all out. Oh, but then I can't get at them to tighten those up. Oh. See, what would have been really nice if I'd have thought of it beforehand would have been to weld the nuts onto the bracket so that I could put the screws in through this side, because once it's on you can't get at those nuts either. But that would mean again taking this off, doing the welding, repainting it black. Do you know, that might just be the easiest way to go. Bugger. Because I said something else that's difficult. It's almost impossible to get your hand up in there to get at the nuts while the wheel's in. So the wheel's got to come out as well. I think what this needs is a cup of tea. And then bugger. Yep, I really think the easiest way. You know what, if I TIG these nuts on, then I'm not going to put much heat into this. I can probably get away with just, because this is going to be covered, with just putting a little bit of black, brushing a little bit of black paint on to weatherproof it all. It's not going to come down here. I don't even think it's going to get into there. So let me go and have my cup of tea. Then when I come back, I'll take this light off, take the wheel out, take the bracket off, weld the nuts onto the back, dab some paint on, put it all back together, and then see if we can fit it. Bugger, bugger, bugger. Alright, tea time. Right, there it is with the nuts welded on the back and a little bit of black enamel paint on, which will dry quickly because this is still warm. So now I can put that on, and this will screw onto there through here. Whoops, that way on. So I can put this onto the mudguard, and then I can work the cowl, get it bolted on, and then put the light on, hopefully. Well, I have a couple of minor tweaks just for this bit here, but everything went on, and that feels pretty rigid. As I say, I'm glad I made it out of that slightly heavier gauge stuff. So I'm going to bend these bottom parts in a little bit, because now I can put it on this way, I can make this end of it a lot of a tighter round, so it'll go nicely up to this rubber. So that'll all fit. That goes on there. It's a good fit. Alright, so that's that. So that's enough for today. It's actually Sunday. It's getting on for 5 o'clock. Time for a glass of wine and a sit down. And you do whatever you do to enjoy yourselves. And we'll see you later.